Right, today we're going to try to make a basket out of these. These are bramble stems. This is the growth that's grown this year, and so it's very long stems that have got quite a tough inner core. So we're going to gather a bunch of these, make ourselves a basket, and then we're going to do something special with that basket. So for this, they are very, very thorny. So we're going to need these gloves. These are soft leather gloves. Never attempt anything without the gloves. And I've got a piece of old towel here as well. So if we come in close, I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to strip off the thorns and leaves off this stem. So I'm going to take hold of this end bit here. I'm going to fold that kind of double maybe, and just rub it all the way back to there. And the end, the soft end, will come off, because the sappy part at the end here is no good for weaving anyway, but we'll do that. And then we've got a relatively thorn-free stem there, which, if I'd planned ahead a bit better, I would have my knife ready. So then we're just going to cut that off up there without injuring ourselves. There we go. So we've got a piece of nice wiry, springy weaving material there. So I'm just going to gather a whole bunch like that, and then we'll take them home and we're going to make a basket. The sorts of stems we're looking for is this, where it's very, very long, and it's not so much the fact that it's slender that we're looking for, it's the consistency of thickness across the full length of the thing. We can use any length of material really, within reason, but the consistency of thickness is going to make the basket a neater product in the end. Okay, so I've picked myself a good collection of bramble stems, mostly now free of thorns. I'll have to run over them one more time with that cloth, and I've brought them home so that I can sit here in the shade and work on them. Of course, this can be done out in the field very easily, but I thought I'd come home, sit down with a cup of tea, and then make my basket in the shade of a tree here. So a couple of things to say. One is to actually just appreciate the colour and texture on these stems here. They're green and purple and brown, and there's just such a lot of variety of texture and colour and shade in these stems. And I guess if I'm really careful, I can probably exploit that and create some sort of pattern in my basket. I'll have a go. But as this is my first bramble basket, it might not actually work out like that. The other thing is, I don't know if any of you watching that were in any doubt as to whether I needed these gloves or not, but look what's happened to my gloves. And that's what would have happened to my hands if I'd not been wearing them. So there you go. These things are pretty vicious really. The little thorns, they do break off, but the thorns are pretty sharp and vicious on brambles, so they are to be avoided. Anyway, let's get started making this basket. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is decide how big our basket's going to be, and I've decided that the stakes need to be about this long, which allows me about maybe this much basket, and then some end bits there to work with to weave back in at the end, so that we don't actually run out of material. So I don't know, that's about probably 2 feet long. So 60 centimeters maybe, and we're going to have 4 running that way and 4 the other way. So for this I am picking the slightly thicker stems. There's another one. Okay, now we'll just even out any oddities we've got. Just make sure that we've got 2 thick ends going one way and 2 going the other way, just to make it a little bit even. And then we need to bind this base together. Now this is the hardest part probably, is starting off, always the hardest part. But what I'm going to do here as well, I'm just going to angle my stakes because they've got a slight curve to them, and I'm going to want them to bend out anyway once we get going. So I might as well exploit the natural curvature of these stakes. So let's just make sure that they're all pretty much at their midpoint. Okay, so Now we need to bind that little cross hatch there together. Now this is the tricky part, and we're going to take one of the thinnest and most flexible weavers here and take the thin end of it, which is this end, and I'm just going to bend maybe along 1/3 of its length. I'm just going to fold it carefully like that, so I've got a long piece and a shorter piece, and that gives me 2 weavers that I can crisscross around the basket. So let's just get started then. So right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to loop around all of these stakes here. So I've got the long piece has gone underneath, the shorter piece above. It actually doesn't matter which is long and short there. Okay, and I'm going to move that up to that fold point there. Now, this is the tricky part. I'm going to take this weaver here, which is underneath these 4 stakes, and I'm going to pass it over the top of those 4 stakes there. And this part here that's underneath these 4 stakes, I'm going to pass it across the top of those 4 and under these 4. So it's binding that together. And then what we'll do, you'll see that that's actually knotted those together. I'll show you once it starts to actually really grip. So now we're going to take this one, which is underneath, and we're going to put it over the top of these 4 stakes, and we're going to take this one, which is on top, and pass it underneath these 4. This is tricky to get started because you have to kind of hold it all in place at the same time, but it will get easier as we go along. I'm going to rotate now. Now, next we're going to take this one, which is underneath, and pass it over the top of those 4 stakes, and this one, which is on top of those 4 stakes, goes underneath these 4. Okay, so now we've made a little square where we've bound the stakes together like that, and this is where it will start to get easier, but we will carry on doing that pattern. Okay, so we're just going to go around one more time around all 4 stakes like that, and then we're going to split out to individual stakes. So this one that's underneath here is going to go over the top, and this one that's on top is going to go underneath, and we will find that that starts to build the base of the basket. So the one that's underneath goes over the top, and we need to try to flatten out that base now, make sure we don't bunch it into just a bundle. Okay, and that's all the way round twice now, so we've got 2 rows all the way round. So this is where now we will begin to just weave in and out of each individual stake. So the one that's underneath goes over the top, the one that's on top goes underneath, and what we'll do is that one that's on top goes underneath and then over the top of the next one, and then that one goes underneath and over the top of the next one. Once this settles down, I'll show you the technique in closer detail. So what we're going to do now is join in another piece, and the way we do that is we take our weaver here and we just take the thin end and we give it a bend about there, and then we match the long piece with this short piece like so, and this short piece will get laid alongside this long piece here. So we're just going to loop it around there like that, and then we're going to treat these 2 as one and the other 2 as one. So the next weave is to take these 2, oops, a little bit tricky, but you'll get the hang of this, and it'll be much clearer when I show it later when the basket is more complete. So you take both of those pieces together as if they were one strand and just start weaving in as if it's always been that way. And then this one goes over this stake under there. And again, we've got two weavers there, well, a little short piece and a long piece, but we're treating them as if they're one. At the moment we've got a flat base, so we are going to have to think in a minute about starting to bend these up to form a basket. Right, okay, so we're going to take a piece of weaver here, we're going to bend it so we've got a short piece and a long piece. We match the short piece with the long piece, long weaver, and the long piece with the short weaver, and we just loop it around that piece there, and then carry on as if nothing had happened. So we're just now treating pairs of pieces as if they're one weaver, so short and long piece there, and that goes around like so. Now here's where we need to start bringing the basket up. So all I'm going to do is, just as I go round, I'm just pulling a little bit tighter on here, on the one that goes around the back, just pulling tighter, and that will tend to bring the basket in. I'm just going to give these a little kink as well, which will help them to lift up. So what we can do here as well is start to pull on these weavers if they feel like they're a little bit loose around the stakes. Now, we've got a bit of a problem here. This stake has become rather weak and is actually just going to snap off. So I'm going to weave in. All we're going to do is pick up where that was. We're going to push underneath a couple of weavers like that. We're going to go back through the basket under a couple of weavers on the inside, and we're just going to pretend like that was always there. When we get to this point, it's easier actually sometimes to think of the weaving as just twisting those pieces and looping them over the next stake. Twist and loop over like that. It's the same actual stroke, it's just a different way of thinking about it. Twist and bring that one over. It's really starting to form a basket now, which is great. Okay, now we could go on, and we could join in, just like we did with that stake that broke. We could join in more stakes and we could carry on making a much larger basket. But I think I'm actually going to stop there because this is just a berry basket. So that's as big as I probably need it to be. So to finish off, what we do is we need to do something with these long weavers here. So we'll just go a couple more along here and get them to a more manageable length. We're going to thread it down into the basket like this. I'm just going to thread that weaver down in between the weave like that and pull it tight. And don't worry that we got that end sticking out, we'll deal with that in a minute. And then this piece here, we're going to do the same. We're going to go behind the next one and we're going to thread it down into the weave here. Sorry about the background noise. That's something I have control over, I'm afraid. I'm just going to bend that end so it comes out when it's gone down in between the weave. Okay. Now, yeah, okay, it'll do it if it comes out there. Right, okay, so, and we're just going to pull that tight as well. Give it a little bit of a bend just to make it flexible. And that's going to go through there like that. Okay, don't worry that that's messy at the moment. It will all neaten up in a minute. Now with these stakes, we're going to weave them back the other way. Okay, so all we're actually going to do with these stakes is just push them down into... We can do more complex things than this, but this is probably just the simplest way to finish off here. We're just going to take them and push them into the next vertical space like that. And we'll do the same with this one here. Because this is just a simple basket we're aiming for here. And they should push all the way down through and pull out the bottom, that's it. Okay, right, I'll just finish off here and then I'll show you what I've finished making. Okay, so here we are. So all of the stakes, I took them and just pushed them down through the next weave. And then all we're going to do now is just take a strong pair of scissors and we're just going to go off and cut carefully those tails off. Just trim it all up, all over. We could do that with a knife, but I might risk cutting the actual basket if I do that. So we're just going to go, and all of these pieces that are sticking out like this, just going to trim them off. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll just give it a bit of a stretch as well, so that the cut end disappears back into the basket. The same on the inside. Anything that's straggly or sticking out, we're just going to trim it off nice and neat. Okay, so there we are. So that is a basket made entirely from bramble stems. How about that? It's not perfect, but I think it is beautiful, and I'm quite pleased with that. So I think the most fun thing about this is going to be what we do next with it. So now we're going to take our bramble basket and we're going to pick some blackberries directly into it. But I am a little bit concerned some of the holes in this basket might be a little bit too big for blackberries. So I think what we'll do first is we'll pick a few leaves from the brambles and we'll just line that basket up with bramble leaves. So there is just something incredibly satisfying about the idea as well as the activity of picking beautiful wild blackberries into a basket made from wild blackberry canes. I don't quite know why that pleases me as much as it does, but it's actually really feels good. So it's been quite a good day's blackberry picking. There's some beautiful blackberries here now, and we've picked a lovely basket full. Now I've often said that I quite like the aroma of blackberries almost as much as the flavour, and one of the things I've noticed here, just smelling these wild blackberries in this basket, there's not a trace of sterile plastic or anything else like that. These have been picked directly into a natural basket made of the same plant as the blackberries themselves. I don't know, maybe I'm imagining it, but it just smells even better than usual. So there it is, we're back home now, and this is blackberries picked into a basket made from the very same plant. So what could be more complete and lovely an idea than that? The aroma of these blackberries is about as pure as you will ever experience. So there you go. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me make this basket and pick these blackberries. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.